What's up everyone, Trent here and welcome to The Fortress. We have just come from checking out a special double feature screening of last year's Death of Superman and the brand new Reign of the Supermen that takes place after Clark's passing, and we have 4 Supermen that fill the void and claim to be the real Superman replacing him. So what do we think of it? Stay tuned to find out, and as always, you're watching The Fortress. Okay, so Reign of the Supermen takes place 6 months after the passing of Superman, aka Clark Kent, and there are now 4 new superheroes trying to take his place in Superboy, Steel, Cyborg Superman, and the Eradicator. Now, some of these are claiming to be the original Superman back from the dead, others are merely taking up the mantle to fill the void that is left. It's up to Lois Lane and, of all people, Lex Luthor to get to the bottom of the situation. And we already know that Lex is using Superboy as his kind of underling to make himself known as the new Superman, even though he's only a child. So, all I can say is this is a really fun story, and don't go into this movie expecting it to be a direct adaptation of Reign of the Supermen. It does take a few elements of the comic book from there. I mean, it's very hard to incorporate all the issues that were covered in the Reign of the Superman arc. I mean, you had Adventures of Superman, Man of Steel, Superman, and Action Comics, all focusing on all 4 different Supermen. And then you have to have the return of Clark come into it, and you just don't have that much time in an 80-minute story. So, they did take liberties with the story, and that's not a bad thing. It does fit very nicely into this animated universe that they are building, that has been building from the Flashpoint Paradox and Justice League War. So, instead of Mongol, they've incorporated Darkseid into the situation. And that's probably the biggest shortcoming of the movie, is the Darkseid subplot. It kind of detracted for me a lot of the strength that was being shown in the first half of the movie. And it is the first half of the movie that is the strongest. You get introduced to all 4 different Supermen. You see that some of them are much more vicious than others. So someone like Steel, who's come in to take up the mantle to show inspiration and fill the void of Superman, he has a completely different demeanor to Eradicator, who uses very brutal tactics and kind of kills people instead. So it's good to get those dynamics. The strongest people in this story are Superboy, Lois Lane, and Lex Luthor. The voice cast is just absolutely amazing. Rebecca Romijn does a fantastic job as Lois. She's got the sternness and just Lois's demeanor down pat. And some of the banter that she has with Lex Luthor, aka Rainn Wilson, is just absolutely phenomenal. And speaking of Lex, he was one of the people that I didn't really like in part 1. And I thought Rainn Wilson was a really miscast choice to have his voice, because it was very nasally and very whiny. He's come into more of a stride in this role. It's a much more powerful presence that he's got in his voice. Still has that kind of nasally tone to it, but it is a lot more stronger and has a lot more depth and strength behind it. And basically every scene that Lex Luthor is in, he steals. The animation is amazing, the facial expressions, just the tics he gets when someone says something that doesn't go his way is just great. There's some really good banter with Superboy, aka Cameron Monaghan, who is known as Jerome in Gotham. He's done a great voice job as Connor, and it's just really, really good to see such a strong voice cast being added to this animated universe that has already been built in Justice League. Because we do have all the Leaguers come back again with their original voice actors. So we've got Jason O'Mara as Batman, who's filled the shoes of Kevin Conroy amazingly. And my personal favourite, Nathan Fillion as Green Lantern. Can we please, let's cut this review for a second, can we please, Warner Brothers, DC, give Green Lantern an animated feature film that is with Nathan Fillion voicing? It is perfect. Once again, not in the movie for long, but steals every scene, and every line that he delivers is just hilarious. So, the story's not the strongest, but it is quite compelling when you think of the emotions that are going through everyone's head in terms of Superman being gone. You get a lot of good scenes with Lois and Superman's parents, and just how the void is being filled with Clark disappearing as well, because when Superman goes away, Clark goes away. And that's all in the first half of the movie, which is fantastic. It's the second half of the movie that really kind of pulled me out of it, and that was when the Darkseid subplot came in. Cyborg Superman, not to try and spoil things too much, but he implements a plot to kind of get more people similar to him, and that's all at the ploy of Darkseid, and it just didn't really do much for me in terms of being a strong story point. When we were watching this, Julia actually turned to me and said, I just feel like I'm watching one of the worst episodes of Justice League, which is not a good thing. And it dragged on a long time, and it wasn't really flowing quite well. However, the ending was really, really good. You get some really good development with Cyborg Superman. You get to understand why he's kind of gone a bit crazy. And what's amazing is the animation, you see his face change. As the movie progresses, he gets more and more crazy. His eyes start going a bit more bloodshot. The shadowing is going, and he just becomes maniacal, and he looks like an absolute beast. The animation, while we're talking about that, hit and miss. You have some beautiful set pieces, beautiful lighting designs, and when you get a character close up and they're talking to one another, showing facial expressions, it is on point, it is flawless. However, when there's more than 2 or 3 characters in a scene, the animation becomes very bland, very basic, and it kind of just looks like they've rushed the entire thing and it is not a finished product. And that takes you right out of a lot of key scenes where there's meant to be a lot of emotions and there's funerals or big congregations. It kind of just really takes you back when you see all these faces that have minimal lining and minimal shade. But when you get them close up, it is amazing. Darkseid looks fantastic. Cyborg Superman, as I mentioned, is great. And the costume designing, even though I don't like the New 52 design with the high collar, when Kal-El came out in the black suit, it was awesome. It had a kind of metallic shine by the way they shaded it. And they went through a kind of a meticulous detail in having the crest, the Superman crest, kind of shaping his pectorals. But there was some really funny moments in there where he's kind of like come back and crash landed, and suddenly a gust of winds come and his long luscious locks are blown in the wind. And it was a serious moment and an emotional moment because Lois hadn't seen him, and it just kind of made me laugh right out loud just seeing this corny 80s hair blow. It was like watching a Steve Vai concert. Anyway, I didn't think I was going to like the movie as much as I did. I loved part 1. And whilst it wasn't the perfect movie, it is one of the better movies that Warner Brothers Animation have released in this series. And it just goes to show that you don't need to have Batman as your lead character for a movie to do well, an animated feature even. And it's good to see Superman get his due with these last 2 movies, and his support cast is just phenomenal, and they all got a chance to shine. Bibbo Bobolski, he was one of the characters that I didn't think was going to be as prevalent, but once again, played a strong role. Jimmy was there, Perry was there, Cat Grant, they all played a role, and it all reminded me just why Superman is my favourite DC character of all time. So yeah, whilst it wasn't a perfect movie, it was flawed. It's not a direct adaptation of Reign of the Supermen, as I'm sure many of you would want, but it is a very enjoyable movie despite this, and I recommend you pick it up when it's released on home video. But yeah, let me know what you think of the review. I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. It is highly enjoyable. The animation is choppy, hit and miss, but when it works, it works. And yeah, I'm Trent. Follow our handles at Fortress Nerds, subscribe to our channel, and let us know what you thought of Death of Superman and Reign of the Supermen. What's your favourite comic book arc? Talk to us in the comments below, subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and as always, you're watching The Fortress.